sweet spot and like the biggest opportunity for most suppliers, and why you see, I would say roughly 50% of deductions comes in the form of shortages and overages, and being able to identify those. To hop in and learn a little bit about Vendormint, I think we need to start with you learning a little bit about the Vendormint leadership team. First, I would like to start talking to you about Max Boren, who is our founder and CEO. Max is a longtime retail guy. He actually originally founded a Amazon FBA company that became very large, but it was in a space with very tight margins, and he was operating really thin. And in that, anytime you're operating on thin margins, you have to be really, really good at accounting for every dollar that you have. And so, as Max was just running his business, he realized that he was missing opportunity in lost inventory and deductions with Amazon FBA. And so he developed a process to be able to recoup those funds and get credit for the inventory that was lost. And in doing so, he realized there was a need for a lot of other Amazon FBA um, suppliers to be able to do the same, or vendors. And he actually ended up walking away from his, or selling his retail Amazon FBA business, and actually started this revenue recovery and inventory recovery business called Gatita. And I start there because, Max grew Gatita into an incredible company. They had over 15,000 sellers on their platform live towards the end, serviced over 24,000 in the lifetime. And that was where Max really got his love and passion for retail compliance and revenue recovery. And then if you fast forward a bit, Max and I got to meet in this last year, but I'll tell you a little bit about myself first. So, Dallas Counts, CEO of Vendormint, I would say investor, co-founder with Max. I have been in retail for over 17 years now. I got my start at Walmart. And I actually started in asset protection, which is, I feel like, a little ironic because in asset protection, you're all about making sure that you know where your shrink is, and not just people stealing from the store, but your paper shrink as well, which is really around compliance and auditing, and to making sure you have good processes to make sure that you're not leaking money out of the cash office or through your claims process, etc. But fast forward about a year and a half, 2 years into my career at Walmart, I moved into merchandising, which was where I really found my passion. Starting as a financial planner and then moving into multiple buying roles across Walmart and Sam's Club, mostly in the food space, and then ultimately ended up running the entertainment, toys, and seasonal e-commerce team. And so Max and I hit it off, and we formed Vendormint. But our vision for Vendormint has really stemmed from our passions in our past. Both mine as a merchant, and Max's as a FBA seller, and then also from his passion and understanding his P&L and where his money has gone. And so when we formed Vendormint, we wanted to make sure that we weren't just a one trick pony, meaning that we could service more than one retailer. Because what we have seen, I think, and everybody's kind of seen recently, is that there's been this need to centralize and reduce the broad spectrum of services across different suppliers, meaning they don't necessarily want to work with 15 different partners when they could work with one partner, and they want to be able to centralize and strengthen those relationships and get more strategic over time, and build a longer lasting partnership. And so with that, that's where within Vendormint, we service revenue recovery and retail compliance, not just at one retail outlet, but we do it across. Currently, I think we're a little over 56 retail outlets in the US. Walmart, Target, Costco, Home Depot, Lowe's, Dollar General, CVS. Those are the big guys, in Kroger. We service all those, but we also are starting to service not just retail, but also distribution channels like KeHE or Unify. So really important to us to be able to be a partner not just within one retail set, but for a company across their entire retail chain, and be able to help them find the challenges that they may be encountering. And so within Vendermint, having such a broad and big ambition, we knew we needed a really incredible team in order to achieve that. And so one of our first people that we were able to bring on is a guy named Brad Martin, and Brad leads our product organization. Brad also was working for a supplier who sold into multiple retail outlets, and he led that team and worked closely with his owner and CFO across all the different challenges. And he gained a passion for deductions and revenue recovery through that as well. So much so that later in his career, he worked at a company called Supply Pike, where he founded the deduction business there. And I think we all know that Supply Pike has done a pretty good job with their deduction business. He went on to then do product development at Nucleus, building out analytics solutions as well as some additional deduction capabilities. And I feel like if you talk to Brad, he would tell you that he never really got to go all the way as deep as he would like, and he wanted to be able to go broader as well. And so he was really excited when we approached him about the opportunity of Vendormint. So we were able to have Brad join us, who is one of the what I would call few real industry experts that's been in the weeds and been building product around these types of solutions at scale for a while. We also knew that in working with these major enterprise solutions, we wanted to make sure that our tech stack was absolutely top notch, and that any CTO or CISO or whoever it might be that's working with us from a large CPG would have the confidence in how we've developed and how we've pulled together our tech then in order to do our business. And so we were able to find a gentleman named Rob Gonda. Max actually had a relationship with him from his days at Catita, where he was working with Rob when Rob was at a company called Catalina. And many of those listening in might be familiar with Catalina, because Catalina is one of the largest retail data and analytics companies there is. They manage transaction volume for basically almost every brick and mortar retail outlet in the US outside of Walmart. And they help with hyper targeted, loyalty based coupon ads on receipts. So anytime you've gone into a CVS or a Walgreens and Kroger and you get a receipt printed and there's coupons, Rob led that team at Catalina and was responsible for data and analytics. But before that, Rob also was the chief digital officer at McDonald's, who went through a revolutionary time period while he was there, where he was responsible for bringing out the new McDonald's app, the new digital menu boards, their loyalty program, and many more other deliveries at a company that had been around for quite a while. And so I think you'll see in this background of Vendormint and the passion that we're bringing and what we're trying to build, we really wanted to make sure that we had all the experts. And so we set up the team from a product development and from a tech perspective. But the last piece that we really wanted to make sure that we were really hitting on all cylinders, while we had a lot of experience in deductions and retail compliance and revenue recovery between myself and Max and Brad, we wanted to get even further in that. And so we brought on a lady named Angie Gottney, who Angie actually used to run the Walmart dispute team of 104 for 12 to 13 years while she was there. And then she did it for another 12 or 13 years after she left. And so really just making sure that we have put together an incredible team to be able to service all of our clients to the best of our capabilities. And so that's a little bit about how we were formed and who we are. I just want to put one little point of clarification. So 3 to 8% is the total deduction world. And so what we see within that is there's valid and invalid. And so within that 3 to 8%, there's some that is perfectly normal. And those typically start with whenever you have an agreement with a retailer. Most retailers today are going to have some type of payment terms where they may be asking for a cash discount if you pay within a certain time period. They're going to have returns and damages claims within that. They're going to have new warehouse, new store allowances. But then there's also compliance related. So how are you shipping? Are you getting fined and penalties for using bad pallets, or for wrong shrink wrap, or your labels aren't where they're supposed to be, or your corrugate on your boxes is falling apart, you have damaged pallets? Those all sneak into deductions. And so You could have items set up wrong where you cause issues with your invoicing, and so that also will sneak into a deduction. And then pricing. If you have a wrong price, most retailers in their contracts today will say they'll take the lower of two prices, either the invoice price or what's in their system, and they're not always the same. So being able to go through and look at all these different types of deductions is where we get to 3 to 8% of your total revenue being in deductions. And with every client that we've worked with so far, they are falling all within, some actually quite a bit higher, just depending on the type of business model they have. We had a recent one that was close to 40%. Now, many of those were um, process related issues, and they just caused a lot of challenges to be able to actually find where the real problems lie, to be able to make sure you're actually getting the meat and potatoes. And so when we're working with a company and we looked at these 3 to 8% of deductions, we're going to go through and do an audit to understand what's causing those deductions. And then we're going to say, do we think those are real? Are they valid deductions or are they invalid deductions? And we don't just help with invalid. I think, this is a misnomer, and I don't know if it's because other players in the space historically have only focused on that invalid. And, our business model is a commission based model based on recovery, but we also work on the valid. Our goal as a partner with our clients is to make sure that they become a better company and not that we're just getting the money back and taking our piece. Ideally, over time, if you're working with Vendormint, like our goal is to reduce your total valid and invalid deductions, and make sure that we reduce that 3 to 8% as much as possible, and then the invalid piece even more so. And so as we go through and do this audit, we can classify into what types of deductions are they? Are they contractual? Are they compliance related? Are they shortages? Are they overages? Is it damages? Is it returns? And then kind of call it an other bucket, a catch-all, where there's some other nuanced pieces that can fall in there, and start to figure out what can we do to help each of our clients reduce each of these buckets on both invalid and valid deductions. From the moment that you engage with us, the first and foremost thing that we're going to do with you is when Greg Porlier and Christy Coates, who are on our sales team that you might work with, Christy here local in Northwest Arkansas and Greg out of New Jersey, they're going to want to understand, what are your challenges. What are you seeing? What retail fronts do you need support on? And they're going to help fact find to see where we might need to leverage our expertise in order to help our clients. And then from there, we don't go straight into a contract. We can sign NDAs so that we can start to look at your data, and you're not sure what we're doing and how we're working with it. Make sure we give you that level of confidence, and we spell out some of our security pieces in that. But then also, we'll do a free audit. We do this audit before you ever sign. It's a no cost. It's a little bit higher level than obviously what we do once we get a full contract, but we'll go through and start to organize those buckets, and at a high level give you a readout of where the deductions are occurring. Are they happening in returns? Are they happening in damages? Are they happening in shortages? Do we see a lot of compliance related fines? And then we'll come back and give you a high level idea of what we think is reasonable for recovery, or just invalid opportunities. Now, at that point, it's still pretty high level, but we can give you a sense of what's the size of prize, and then from there, we give it back to the client to understand, is this something that they want to pursue? And sometimes, the clients have different needs, and they'll ask for different capabilities. But most of our clients will ask us to do a historical cleanup and then help manage their ongoing business. Pay for performance, I think, is really kind of an important thing nowadays. Even within our model where every dollar counts, every penny counts, we don't want to be charging our clients. We don't provide them value. And it's really important in these specific instances too, where there's money that's been lost, that we're able to show that we can recoup that before we're able to charge for our service, because we shouldn't be charging you if we're going to come in and we're not actually going to recover money for you, if we're not actually going to help you. So really important for us to do a pay for performance model. Now, what I would say is if there's clients that have any special needs, like, we're happy to listen to what those needs are. We've had a few that have asked to be on retainer. But we prefer the pay per performance model. We think it just makes it best for us because it puts our interests most aligned to our clients' interests, and it's an easier opportunity for us all moving forward. And that way, if we don't, for some reason, provide the value that we think we're going to, you're not out any money. It's a little bit more of a risk-free opportunity. There are definitely solutions that are available out there for some retailers, not all, where they're more of a SaaS model. What I would say within those, from what I've seen across many of them, is they're very focused on a narrow set of deductions. They're not looking at the broad base, meaning they may only look at shortages or maybe overages, but they don't necessarily get into the contractual. They don't necessarily get into the compliance. They don't get into returns and damages. And so just having full software based system leaves a lot on the table. And then you definitely have managed services out there as well. And I think the delicate balance here is how do you provide enough efficiency that you can continue to operate at scale. So this is where automation comes in. We've got some clients that have come in that have hundreds of thousands of lines in months of data. It's not feasible to do that 100% manual without an army of people. And so this is where automation starts to come in. And so we leverage our experts to build out algorithms for us to review across multiple different retailers to be able to highlight areas of opportunity for us to dive in deeper. And then the expert hand's really important because as we review responses from retailers, maybe we're getting denials, maybe we're getting certain requests back on certain data that we have or have not provided, or we may need to be escalated. We can review that with an expert versus it just sitting and getting stagnant. We've actually seen quite a few of our clients where they have old denied client claims that never get touched again. And there's plenty of those that are valid or that are invalid that should be getting resubmit. And without that extra level of support from our experts, it might not get touched. And so we go back and we review all of these with our experts and with our tech to make sure that we can get every cent that's truly owed back to the suppliers. And this is important too because as a supplier nowadays across these different retail fronts, they're really asking for a lot from you from an investment standpoint. And so we're not trying to get money back that you're not owed. So it's not a hit on the retailer. And the retailer should be actually benefiting from you getting this money back because you should be able to take that and reinvest it into your business, whether it's in price, whether you're doing, maybe a temporary price action, or maybe you're investing into retail media with a retailer, maybe you're investing into data, or maybe you're investing into your manufacturing and supply chain so that you can produce more volume or more innovation. Ideally, the retailers have this stood up in a way that the reason they have these deductions and fines is efficiency. They need to make sure they're being efficient. And sometimes the processes between the retailers and the suppliers don't align, and it can be on the supplier side or it can be on the retailer side, and it can cause these challenges. And so having the automation to help provide highlights of where opportunities are, but actually having our experts review each of the deep dives is really, really important for us to make sure that we're maximizing our opportunity and providing the best feedback back to the supplier. Also, on a pure automation side, we don't get to help do some of the consulting work that we do today with our clients, where when we find issues with item setup, or we find issues with supplier agreements where you have multiple supplier agreements on the same item, and how is it actually pulling into your POs and invoices and check data, or making sure that if you have an operational deficiency coming out of one of your manufacturing facilities, we can help you find those so that we can reduce your reliance on the need for deductions over time and upstream that. And without that managed service expertise, we lose a lot of that capability, and we really only kind of come back to the being able to highlight shortages and maybe overages, and you don't get to see the rest. Documentation has become very complex, and I think as logistics and 3PLs have become more and more abundant, there's a lot more different methods in which suppliers are shipping to retailers, which can cause a challenge for how do you centralize documentation? We're happy to work with our clients if they don't have a solution on trying to stand up a solution, but if they do have a solution, whether we can use APIs into their logistics, we can do that, or whether they have their own API, we can use things like box.com to where we can centralize. The reason we want to centralize is instead of asking a client to help find one-off, PODs or bill of ladings to match to be able to do a claim, we leverage OCR and AI to auto match at the PO invoice level so that we can make sure that we're not having to have our clients spend a ton of time, for the metaphor of going through the file cabinet to find the one document to scan and send and attach. We would prefer to have them all en masse, and we can help you auto match those to each of the different deductions. So the technology piece is really important here. This is where automation's critical, and it becomes a big help for our clients so that they don't have to spend more money on resources on their end trying to find these documents. So document collection is really key to success for a lot of the different types of disputes that we manage. And this is a big focus for us from a tech perspective. A couple things that are sweet spots for us. First and foremost, if you're a traditional warehouse fulfillment method, that's where we see a lot of opportunity. If you're in like a direct to store DSD or a bottler network within beverage or other pay from scan type services, those have a little bit less opportunity, but there's still sometimes opportunity. So it can be worth at least doing an audit. Sweet spot in like the biggest opportunity for most suppliers, and why you see I would say roughly 50% of deductions comes in the form of shortages and overages, and being able to identify those. Those are the kind of the low hanging fruit. But the rest is typically takes a lot more opportunity. So within contractual, you have to do a lot of work to understand for every item that's shipped, what is the vendor agreement or supplier agreement that the retailer is using, to be able to validate whether or not there was any potential contractual concerns within that purchase order / check that goes back to the client. And that can be a lot more tedious and a little bit harder to dig into. Again, this is where automation is really important and where we really focus to make sure that we're leveraging that. And then within compliance that you mentioned, the compliance piece is ever evolving. It's kind of a moving target, which makes it really complicated if you're a supplier to always know where is the goal line if they keep moving it. And so the reason it moves is because these retailers, they find opportunities for efficiency as well, and they need their suppliers to continue to evolve. And that's why they have these ever evolving compliance programs like SQEP, OTIF, Target's Perfect Order. And more retailers are now coming out with these compliance programs. And the intent, right, is for everybody to have savings through efficiency. But if you're not being able to pay attention to it day in, day out, across multiple clients, across multiple retailers, sometimes it's really easy to miss changes in these policies and see them in the data. And so one of the benefits for us is because we're working across multiple retailers with many different clients, we see this on a more frequent basis, and we are constantly studying every single one of those to understand, is there a broader opportunity for us to impact and support our different clients across those retailers as they evolve policies. And this can be everything from how you're doing your shipping with packaging, all the way to when you're submitting a dispute. How do you submit that dispute that's most efficient for that retailer? How do you make sure you have the right documentation? How are you notating and calling out the right pieces of information in order to make sure that that's an efficient process and that you get a higher one-time approval rate and you don't have this back and forth? So it's a great question. There's a lot within that. And I think we're positioning ourselves in a way that we can support across multiple resale sets, across policies, and across multiple types of deductions. Supply chain's definitely getting more and more complex. Many years ago when I first started as a merchant, it was a lot more simple. You only had a few different forms of distribution methods. But as the customer evolves, the retailer evolves, which pushes the suppliers to also evolve. You have pickup and delivery to your home, delivery in your home. You've got these different fulfillment methods with drones and autonomous vehicles that are starting to try to make their way into the market. And I think we'll continue to see that. But also, I think sourcing in general is another one. And so as we think about where are you sourcing from and what's your fulfillment method to the retailer, are you a local US based fulfillment? Are you international? Are you multi-international? And how are you servicing that? And so for us, the future looks like where we continue to expand, maybe not even just to retail suppliers where we can help understand and audit their revenue recovery and supply chain compliance, but also upstreaming where direct import, we're working with a client right now to scope out direct import and see if we can start to help some there. That's one that historically people haven't really been doing a lot of support on. We're also looking more broad international. We do work now within Canada. We've scoped out a bunch of the Mexico retail stores as well to be able to support. And we've even begun scoping Europe. And so, as I talked about earlier on, our vision, our mission is to be able to be a global enterprise solution for not just smaller companies, but for larger CPGs as well, where they can come to us and we can support them across their supply chain, not just within their warehouse to Walmart, Target, but from their all the way from their direct import to Walmart, all the way to their business in Canada, Mexico, and even in the UK. And so continuing to look and understand how can we increase our capability sets to be a partner across their full suite of business. A brand that hasn't worked for us, what should they expect? When you first reach out to us, like I think I mentioned this a little bit in an earlier question, but our sales team's going to work with you to understand what are your challenges. Once we kind of understand your challenges and we understand what you're looking to do, we can get our NDA signed and we can move into our what we call free audit stage. And our free audit stage, we're going to do that high level audit across the different retail sets that you've identified where you have challenges and understand what are the opportunities. From there, if you decide to sign with us, we'll work with you. And maybe I'll take a step back. Actually, during that free audit stage, there will be certain accesses that we'll work to set up with you so that we can get the data in order to do that free audit. So that's one step. Once we've actually signed with you, there may be additional data that we're going to be working with you on procuring so that we can get more and more detail. And that's anything, during the audit stage, we're not going to be collecting documents from your logistics, 3PLs, PODs, and all that good stuff. So we'll be continuing to work to stand that up during our onboarding phase once you've signed. And as far as results go, we spend a lot of time prioritizing and understanding on a retailer base how long is their look back time period. What's the where is quote unquote the low hanging fruit where we can get you the best return fast. But then we also need to prioritize within that look back time period anything that's potentially aging out of policy. We'll want to go and look at those first. And so we'll do a little bit of a hybrid approach in the first month to look at where can we get you some immediate wins while also making sure we're managing anything that's close to being out of that retailer policy. And that can be anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, depending on the retailer. And then there's also different nuances, like Walmart, they have collect and prepaid, depending on your type of distribution method. There's certain pieces there that we might change on how we approach those so that we can get you the money the fastest. And those timelines, if you're working with Walmart or a Target on those, can change depending on your prepaid or collect. As collect doesn't have as far back as a time period, even though Walmart does allow up to 2 years of historical audit. So we'll go through and we'll work with you, and then we'll have our customer service team reach out to you and set up a regular cadence of how often do you guys want to meet and how often you want to get reporting, what kind of reporting are we looking for, and then we'll start kicking off those within the first 30 days to show you how that's working, and then we'll continue on the cadence that works best for each individual client. To engage with us, you could reach out to Greg Poirier, or you could reach out to Christy Coates. You could reach out to myself. We have a website, vendormint.com. You can also go on there and request more information. Then we have a chat bot on there as well that has a lot of good information that actually links directly into some of our sales folks too as well. So if you get some more complicated questions, it'll live chat with one of our sales team. you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. Whatever your preferred method is, that's easiest for you. We're welcome. We welcome the contact. Obviously, we can provide our email addresses to you as well, Matt, so that you can provide them out to the audience here, and they can reach out direct and get time scheduled, and we can start to understand their business and what kind of support needs they may have.